Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel. We are going to bring Kevin Michelizzi in just a moment. He's going to update us on what's going on over in his neck of the woods. He's in Crimea, and we'll be talking about this potential escalation in the conflict with NATO, the United States in particular, and the UK, possibly approving the use of their weapons to strike targets inside Russia. We'll tell you why, and we'll look at the implications of that, potentially, with Kevin. Also, 1 year ago today, James Topp laid his hand on the tomb of the unknown soldier at the War Memorial in Ottawa after walking all the way across the country. We will relive that moment. And while all that is making headlines, the remains of another unknown soldier has made his way back to the Maritimes in Canada. We'll share that information with you as well. So don't go away. We'll be right back with Kevin on the other side of this.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, let's bring Kevin in all the way from Crimea. Hello, welcome back, sir.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm okay. I'm enjoying a beautiful sunset here in the dark in the studio, and you are still in darkness because it is very early where you are.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the sunrise.
So, okay, let's dig right into this. Where should we begin? We're going to talk about this talk of the use of possibly U.S. weapons and UK weapons to strike targets inside Russia. But let's start with the latest developments with the Ukraine conflict itself. What are you hearing and seeing over there?
Well, you know what I'm seeing is the Russian military making considerable advances in Ukraine. Did I say the Ukrainian military? The Russian military making significant advances. They're actually taking village after village in the Kharkiv area. And today they have actually been striking inside Kharkiv. So, Ukraine has moved forces from other areas up towards Kharkiv to defend the city, but then that causes weaknesses further down the lines in the Donetsk and further down south. So then Russia is pushing forward in those areas as well. So it's really a situation where Ukraine seems to be hanging on to the last Ukrainian. Up until Thursday, we had, nightly attempts at strikes on Crimea with U.S. and British attack 'em and Storm Shadow long-range missiles. It was 5, 6, 8 a night. Thursday night, we had major alarms going off in Crimea, talking about massive missile strikes on Simferopol, Sevastopol, Yalta, Alushta, the bridge. So the entire peninsula, basically. Now, A lot of that was Ukrainian huff that the Russian media picked up, a lot of the independents, and they were pushing around Crimea in the news about these strikes, and it turned out that it actually wasn't true. We had a couple of missiles come into Simferopol. They were shot down successfully. We had one strike in Alushta, which is up the coast from us, probably 60, 70 kilometers. They hit a very strategic military target, an empty school that was being refurbished on the outskirts of town. So that missile did get through and destroy a school there. But in retaliation, Russia then launches all kinds of missiles from Crimea and, the mainland into Ukraine. And, we had at about 4:30 our time. So, morning you guys, we had this going on in Kharkiv. This was a strike on a shopping center in Kharkiv. The Ukrainians say, there were like 6 injured and 2 killed. It was
actually, I've seen updated information on that, and this was actually from Russian media. How reliable it is! I've heard that as many as 35 people were killed there, and that wasn't from a Ukrainian media source. But you're only hearing numbers like 6.
Well, I'm actually getting that out of Ukrainian news. Okay. So, and that was reports from, before I went to bed. But the big thing I'm seeing in the difference between the Russian media and the Ukrainian media is the Ukrainian media are claiming it's civilians, and the Russian media is claiming it was a storage location for Ukrainian weapons. So even with the higher numbers that you're getting out of Russian media, they're probably referring to military personnel. A Saturday during an afternoon at a shopping center with destruction like that, if it wasn't a military storage area, there would have been people all over the place there.
Yeah, actually, I have other video here that I was scrambling just to get some stuff queued up before we came on here tonight. But here's another angle on the strike. This is, they're calling it like a hypermarket. I don't know what that means. Is that some sort of like a super shopping center or something? Is that what that would?
Yeah, a hypermarket is a Russian or Ukrainian version of a mall. They tend to be a much smaller scale than malls in the US and Canada. So, it's a bunch of small shops that, operate around with, maybe 1 or 2 large anchor stores, usually a grocery store and something like an electronics store, and then a bunch of little shops, independents.
Yeah, a lot of smoke. A lot of
smoke for a simple mall strike.
Yeah.
And that's what would lead me to believe that it was military storage. And like I say, there's not enough, you see in that, another hypermarket to the left there, there's several cars there, but not a lot up around that mall up there.
Well, that's pretty serious black smoke, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Why, I can't be 100% sure, but something's burning there that's creating that. The only thing I've ever seen that's created black smoke like that in my experience covering fires as a general assignment reporter over the years has been things like plastics or tires. Like, that's a lot of black smoke.
Yeah.
I've, some factories with chemicals sometimes. I suppose it depends on what was inside the hypermarket.
Yep. So as of 10:30 p.m. our time, so about 3:30 your time, there were massive missile launches from Russia throughout northern Ukraine and Kharkiv. So we'll have to wait probably for a couple of hours or maybe morning to, hear what happened with those strikes.
It's interesting.
Usually we see the news of these launches about an hour or two before they actually hit wherever they're going.
It's interesting to see that, and I don't know why I'm seeing more of this, but with this particular incident, I'm seeing a bunch of videos come out of Ukraine. Maybe it's because I've clicked on some stuff, so the algorithm is feeding me more than I normally would get. But I've seen several videos with Zelensky talking about this, plus sort of Ukrainian propaganda style videos that have been fed to me. So here's one. I don't know what he's saying. Maybe you know. I know that he's been calling for. He called Vladimir Putin a madman in one of these. I don't know if you can translate any of this, Kevin.
А на самом деле ему наплевать же и на своих, и цивильных, и военных. Вот смотрите, Харьковская прорыв их направлений Харькова, вот который был там, сколько уже прошло, дней 20, да? 2 недели, чуть больше. Жертвы 1 к 8. 1 украинец, 8 русских. Военные жертвы 1 к 8. Ну, скажите,
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Это статистика?
Me either.
Или ему это интересно или нет?
I do know
В неделю
there have been media
порядка,
reports
до этого
and a couple of other videos with like captions and headlines on them saying that he wants more air defenses because he says the strike on Kharkiv today shows that they need more assistance that way, and he called Vladimir Putin a madman because he's saying that it was a strike on a shopping center and killed civilians. So that's what I've seen so far that I've been able to make sense of.
Yeah, and I see a lot of this stuff coming out as well. I actually, have some contacts in Ukraine that feed me information, and we'll never know the truth, but all we can really look at is things like these videos that we just showed, and see, we see the smoke. Excuse me. We see the smoke. We see the damage. We see these, fantastic videos that, Zelensky's making, and, he's not anywhere near Kharkiv. So this was, a production put on by his media company. But all you can do is look at, the number of cars on a Saturday afternoon at a shopping mall. Obviously, it wasn't filled with civilians because there would have been a lot more cars in that parking lot. It's just, you have to look at the evidence around it to kind of figure out what's going on. Zelensky does not go near the line. And with the number of times that we see him doing videos supposedly there, and then he magically, an hour later is somewhere else in Ukraine, it's a lot of production going on. And, this goes on both sides. It goes on in, in Palestine. It goes on in Israel. There's, just a lot of this post-production stuff going on to justify what they want or what's going on, trying to drive people's minds. Zelensky can ask for air defense all he wants, but, production of Patriot air defense missiles are like 25 a month. I had those numbers back a few weeks ago when we were talking. They aren't going to get that many. They got one new one in the last month. And why wasn't it positioned near Kharkiv? Well, because they put them in Kiev to defend the capital city instead. So, they will make the same claims about Odessa. Odessa's been hit extremely hard over the last 2 days, and they don't have air defense there at all. I've seen reports from my contacts coming out of Odessa saying that these missiles and drones are coming in, and there's absolutely no air defense shooting at anything. So, they would need hundreds of air defense units to deploy. Now, they did get a strike. This is something that Russia isn't admitting, but they did take out an air defense system in Crimea a couple of days ago. So, we don't always hear all the news on all the sides. So,
yeah, one of the videos that I saw was last night, and I don't have it queued up here. It's a propaganda style film, or video, and I thought, I don't think this is really going to resonate with the people in the West, if that's who it's directed at, because they were highlighting the destruction of libraries and museums and theaters, and I get what they're talking about. They're talking about the destruction of their culture, which is extremely important to them. But I'm thinking people in the United States and Canada, and probably even in other parts of Europe, are focused on what they're going to spend at the grocery store today, not so much on the war. And if you want people to care, I don't think that they're going to care. A lot of pictures of them putting out a fire at a library. It was to me, it was a very odd piece of information warfare. I might run it tomorrow night if I can find the video again. It was the strangest thing. I think that Ukraine really sucks at the PR game. I was like, people are not in the U.S. They're not going to care if they bombed a library. You're showing them books. I didn't get it, Kevin, but
when the U.S. was helping them with their PR campaign in the earlier months and years of the war, they were actually much better at it. But what's happened is, as the United States has been withholding some support and talking about negotiating with Russia more and more, Ukraine's kind of gone off on their own deal in the PR, and they're not good at it alone. They're good at it if they have the backing of the professionals out of the United States. And a lot of this is, in what I'm seeing, is trying to bring out they're striking civilian infrastructure, they're killing civilians. Now, they're only talking about the burning books and the libraries and whatnot. And of course, this is evidence for, it's genocide. They're trying to eliminate our culture.
Yeah, cultural genocide, yes.
Yeah. So, you have Russia doing similar things. They're much better at it, but, they're constantly talking about Belgorod and the civilian infrastructure that is hit there. Now, I know for a fact that they are hitting civilian infrastructure there and people are being killed. But, it isn't going to affect much of anything outside of Russia and Ukraine, because the West really, they don't see a lot of it. And like you say, they have their own concerns to worry about. When you're trying to decide what you do with your paycheck, with inflation being high, gas being high, things like wars in other countries become more of a nuisance or an aggravation, because your money is going there rather than helping the people in your own country. Same thing can be said about Israel and Gaza, and
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through, seeing if I can find that video. So far, no luck. But here's another one of his videos. Let's see. There's captions on this one, so let me share this with you so I can give him a fair shake here. Here's Zelensky And let me bring it up. There he is. Let's hear what he has to say.
Я считаю, что мы должны быть
I believe that
изначально фундамент
the foundation
к
for any
любому
peace should be
миру
built
должна
built by the
строить страна,
country
которая,
who is,
простите,
forgive me,
жертва.
the victim.
Жертва
The
это
victim is
Украина.
Ukraine.
Мы знаем
We know
глубоко,
deeply
что нам принесла эта
what this
война.
war
Поэтому
brought
мы
us, so we
хотим
want
на
to draw
это
attention
обратить
to this.
внимание. И мы имеем
And
тут
we have the
первое
primary
право.
right here.
Я так считаю.
I think so, no
Чтобы
matter
кто
who
не
says and
говорил, и
thinks
чтобы
what.
кто не считал, у кого какой есть
Who has
опыт
what peace experience
мирных актов и так далее,
and
исторически.
so on, historical
Поэтому
experience.
мы
Therefore,
показали эти
we
пункты
showed these points
и показали
and
решение,
showed the
как вы
solution
видите.
as we see it,
Но мы открыты.
but we are open.
Три
Okay, so I think what they're getting at there is Putin's statement that he is ready to sit down and negotiate a peace based on the lines as they're drawn right now. Do you think there's sincerity in that offer? Or is that accurate,
No.
even that reporting?
You know, the reporting that Putin is willing to sit down often gets misinterpreted in Western press. You know, right now they're saying Putin's willing to sit down. They don't go on with his statement. His statement is always, we're willing to sit down and negotiate peace, but we have to know that we're dealing with somebody who actually has the power to negotiate. And Zelensky doesn't have that power. They've passed laws saying that they can't negotiate with Russia. They are often out there saying they won't negotiate with Putin. This one, I read what he was saying as, you know, we're the ones that were attacked, so we have the right to determine what the terms of negotiation should be, which, you know, we know from history that it's the guys who are winning that always dictate the terms of the negotiations. You know, I don't know if you noticed, but he was sitting in front of a green screen, you know, with the destruction behind him. Now, they did show a soldier, but, you know, he was sitting in front of a green screen.
Yeah, we'll just bring it back up so we can take a closer look at it.
So that's blurred
Изначально
video in the
фундамент.
background.
It is blurred video.
Well, blurred picture,
Yeah.
and it's static. And you can see off of his shoulders the lights from the back to kind of draw away from. You know, the one thing I've noticed about him, and I've seen him in front of the green screens, he always wears a green shirt to give you the impression that he's not in front of a green screen.
Well, it doesn't have to be green. It can be blue, or it can actually be
It
any
can be
color,
blue.
right?
Yeah.
And in fact, if it is a green screen, he shouldn't be wearing green because the chroma key wouldn't work very well.
Yeah.
There is light bleeding in off the back. I mean, I'm
Even the
pretty well versed
soldier,
in
when you
video
look at the
production. I'm not
soldier.
seeing a lot of. I'm not seeing a lot of jaggedness to the edges of him. It's. I
That's a real shot of a soldier.
yeah, that is, yeah, for sure.
But this is not that wouldn't be out of focus back there like that.
Depends on the depth of field of the camera. The telltale sign. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know, definitely some
We also
backlight
have to
coming
keep in mind he owns one of the largest media production companies in Ukraine. So he's a scale above you and I.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a minor point, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're doing their very best to keep him protected. They don't want him exposed to any serious danger. That much is certain.
Well,
And that-
especially now that Russia considers him illegitimate. So, you know, this is the other thing that, you know, you don't hear often in the West is that Russia is on this big thing that he's an illegitimate president. His term is over. He canceled elections. And, for me, this is Russia building up for, we no longer have to avoid taking him out. And this is another reason why I don't believe he's on the lines in Kharkiv doing videos, because I think he knows this is what Russia's plan is. You guys don't hear that. I've seen some reports in the West talking about the end of his term, but reality is he is still the legitimate president. I have this conversation on a daily basis with people. Their constitution says he cannot hold elections while they're in martial law. And, I've heard the argument, which is a valid point, that the reason he keeps calling martial law is to stay in the presidency, but, the Rada has to approve it. So he can't call martial law. He can sign the declaration, but it has to be approved by their Rada. So, he's good through August. He's their valid president. So, Russia is really pulling a false point on that one.
Well, I think that is information warfare. That's propaganda. That's them trying to create a stronger position from which they can do something political and something on the PR side internationally to maybe bring in an alternative government or leader. And I've seen reports that the former president of Ukraine flew into Belarus within the last couple of days. I think
I've heard the rumors of that. I have not been able to verify at all that he's been there. He supposedly was there at the same time Putin was in Belarus, and I have not seen one video with Putin, Lukashenko, and Poroshenko together.
Because I guess it was the reports I've seen indicate that it was the plane of Viktor Yanukovych that flew in the last couple of days, former president, but I'm not seeing any confirmation that he was actually on the plane. Just a lot of speculation. And with what you were just talking about, the claims that Zelensky is no longer the legitimate president. There's a lot of talk out there that they may be positioning Yanukovych to come in and make a comeback.
Okay, so you're seeing that it's Yanukovych, and the reports I was seeing is it was Poroshenko, which I don't believe for a minute.
Yeah, I've got
Yanukovych would make sense because he was the president in 2014. When they had the coup. So, Russia still considers him the legitimate president of Ukraine, even though his term would have been expired now. So.
There it is right there. Headline. But I don't know.
And who knows, like I say, haven't seen anything with anybody but Lukashenko and Putin in the pictures and videos. So, but it would make sense. But now let's keep in mind, we're just talking our opinions here. We aren't telling anyone this is what is going on. But
I don't know.
When he was, run out of office in 2014, he was the legitimate president, and Russia still considers him the legitimate president of Ukraine.
Well, that's certainly the Russian position on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the position of the West or of Zelensky.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. They have a much different view and a quite contrary view to that. But yeah, and Yanukovych fled the country and went to Russia to seek safe haven, and he's still sort of out there in a form of exile from Ukraine. And I don't know. I don't know.
living a very comfortable life in Russia.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. So, all that going on, and we're seeing escalation, at least in a war of words at this point, but it could get, it could go kinetic with all this talk of, well, UK and US weapons potentially being approved for use on targets inside Russia. Here's the head of the NATO alliance talking about just that.
I think the time has come for allies to consider whether they should lift some of the restrictions they have put on the use of weapons they have donated to Ukraine, because especially now when a lot of the fighting is going on in Kharkiv, close to the border, to deny Ukraine the possibility of using these weapons against legitimate military targets on Russian territory makes it very hard for them to defend themselves.
So to be clear, you're asking the US to lift the restrictions on the use of American weapons over Russian territory?
I believe the time has come for allies to consider whether they should lift some of the restrictions they have imposed on weapons donated to Ukraine. Because we need to remember what this is. This is a war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. Ukraine has the right to defend themselves, and that includes also striking targets on Russian territory. Some allies have already lifted those restrictions, allowing to use their weapons against military targets in Ukraine, and I believe the time has come for other allies to consider this.
The UK has effectively lifted the restrictions, and it is the US that's really the single most important one.
I think what we see now demonstrates the need to reconsider those restrictions, not least because we have fighting going on along the border between Russia and Ukraine, especially in the Kharkiv region, where the front line and the borderline is more or less the same. And then, of course, if you deny Ukraine the right to hit military targets on Russian territory, then you make it very hard for them to uphold the right for self-defense. This is self-defense. Self-defense is enshrined in the UN Charter. It's legal, it's legitimate, and we are helping Ukraine with upholding that right, and that should include the ability to also strike targets on Russian territory when there are military legitimate targets we're talking about.
Okay, so I understand the argument. What do you think, Kevin?
I understand the argument, but first, we know that Stoltenberg is nothing but a mouthpiece. He has no authority to make any decisions. He's trying to encourage the U.S. to allow restrictions. I don't have any video of it, but I've got the text that was released from Moscow regarding this video. They say the rhetoric about restrictions on the U.S., the use of U.S. munitions are false and designed to maintain the illusion that the West is not part of the conflict. That was a statement by Lavrov. Lavrov went on and said that U.S. weapons such as ATACMS missiles armed with cluster warheads have already been used on attacks inside Russia, including strikes against civilian targets. We proceed from the fact that American and other Western weaponry strikes targets on the territory of Ukraine currently, or on the territory of Russia currently, primarily civilian infrastructure and residential areas. And he's right. The missiles that are flying into Crimea over, like I say, just a couple of nights ago for close to a week nightly are U.S. ATACMS and UK Storm Shadow long-range missiles. So they've been using them. Now, Ukraine doesn't consider Crimea Russian territory, so they view it as they're striking their own territory, and I can see that argument. But they are also using them in the Belgorod region and, further into Russia at this point. There's been a lot of shooting downs over Russian territory of these missiles. So they're already using them. They're making these grand statements that they don't allow it, much like, I hate to keep going back to Israel, but I don't want to make this all about Russia and Ukraine. But, much like Biden publicly saying, I'm against, killing off all these civilians in Palestine, while he's supplying them weapons. And it's the same situation. Unfortunately, the report, Stoltenberg also said that NATO has no intention of sending troops to Ukraine. Yet the United States released a statement and warning Russia that it would directly intervene in the conflict if Moscow used nuclear weapons. And that's according to the Polish foreign minister. So did the United States say that? Is, the Polish guy speaking out of line? Or are we again trying to, rattle our sabers on nuclear weapons? So, there seems to be a lot of propaganda out there trying to drive perceptions. We're not involved. Russia's the bad guy. Reality is if any of the Western allies start striking further into Moscow, now he's talking about it's right at the border in Kharkiv. Well, reality is Kharkiv is just as far away from the border as Moscow is. So you start seeing U.S. attack of missiles flying into Moscow, and all of a sudden you're going to have Russia doing the exact same thing. They won't send troops into NATO. They'll send missiles into NATO. And they've been very clear about that.
That's the response that we've seen, right? Is that if U.S. munitions are used to strike targets inside Russia, Russia has said that they will strike, well, I think it was specifically with UK weapons and I think US as well, right? Because the UK apparently has already approved the use of these weapons for that purpose.
Yeah. And reality is they've been using them for, 6-8 months at this point. And they are striking inside the territory. Russians are peeved about this. They say, well, we keep hearing President Putin talking about if they strike, inside Russian territory. Lavrov, if they strike within Russian territory. Belgorod's Russian territory, and they've been striking it for months. And, it has escalated at this point. Ukraine got a decent shipment of ATACMS missiles from the United States, but they seem to be, wearing out their usage at this point. They don't make that many of them that quickly, and the shipments of them aren't coming in that quickly. And Russia strikes it for every one that comes into Russian territory. Russia's striking back with, 15, 20 extremely powerful missiles. And all over the last 4 or 5 days, they have struck Western Ukraine. They've struck Kiev. They've struck Kharkiv. They've struck Odessa. So, we're seeing attacks all over Ukraine at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I should also mention that we're going to pull out of this pretty soon because Donald Trump is going to be speaking at the Libertarian convention, and I want to check that out. I don't know what he's going to do, Kevin, because he's going to be speaking there, and apparently the Kennedy team went around and they were handing out rubber chickens, I think the kind that you squeeze and squeak, to the people in the audience in advance of him speaking. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to be standing up there on the podium tonight in Donald Trump's shoes if you have an audience full of people who maybe are not friendly with a bunch of squeaky rubber chickens. But anyway, I sidebar.
I'm since you're on that sidebar, I'm waiting for the debate between him and Biden. I don't know how Biden will hold. They may give them a list of questions that Biden can have the teleprompter for, but Trump is so all over the place. I don't know how Biden will ever handle that.
I don't know. Well, the last time they debated in the last election, he said, "Why don't you just shut up, man?" That's how he handled it, and he still won the election. So I don't know. They both looked kind of stupid up there. honestly, at that time. We have to be worried, though, about this rhetoric back and forth and the actual use of these weapons
Yeah.
in this way.
And, it isn't just Ukraine and Russia. Another point is Germany has again released a statement that they will not send long-range missiles to Kiev because their reasoning now is that they can't be reprogrammed without the participation of the German military, and they don't want to be seen as participants. But any European country that understands Russia, it's Germany. And Germany knows that if Russia says we'll strike back, they know that Russia does not tell lies. So, but it isn't going to do a lot of good if the UK is burning with a nuke. Germany's still grass at that point.
Well, I've said over the last couple of weeks that now would be a real good time for this conflict to come to an end, because Putin probably has most of the territory that he really wants, and probably doesn't want to take over the whole country because he probably doesn't want to have to manage it afterward in some of these areas where the population isn't entirely friendly.
The only other territory that he actually wants is the rest of the Donbass regions, because they aren't at the borders of those regions, and they've already taken those entire regions in. So Russia takes the perspective that Ukraine is the occupying force. Kharkiv and Odessa, they view those as Russian territory. I think they would let Odessa go, but I'd like to sit in those negotiations, considering that's where a majority of the strikes on Crimea go from, And hey, is it going to keep us out of World War III? I don't know. We've got Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, heading off to Iran now. And he released a statement expressing his desire and the need to elevate diplomatic relations and cooperations with Iran to the highest level. And Khamenei, said that, the Muslim nations need to, be aware and destroy plots from the West and form a strong unified front based on their shared principles. We've got groups in Gaza taking new hostages, I saw today.
New
Iran
hostages?
Who's taking a new hostage?
A new hostage.
Yes.
Which side took the hostage?
El-Qassam. So, one of the groups that works with Hamas.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
And we have Iran and Sudan. They came to an agreement to normalize relations and reopen their embassies. So, the guys who were helping Israel protect their territory against Iran have now shook hands with Iran and said, okay, we're friends again. So, we've got the Middle East stirring up too. Gee, I hit some things you weren't aware of, huh, Rick?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, you can do another show on that. So, and of course we have China with their ships and planes floating around in circles around Taiwan right now. Yeah. So, Israel has reprimanded Ireland, Norway, and Spain's ambassadors over their plans to recognize Palestine as a state. So, I don't know. And we have the European Commission, admitting that he went to Georgia and talked about the attack on the Slovakian prime minister there, which he's been accused of doing as a way of pressuring them to not pass this foreign agent law. Mm-hmm. So, you've got Western countries that have foreign agent laws pressuring Georgia to not pass it, or they would be sanctioned. And I don't know, I hate to see them get involved in Georgia. I think Russia would walk all over Georgia if it came to it. people in Georgia don't support the government, going against Russia.
Any additional thoughts on the arrest warrant for Netanyahu and the order from the World Court to have Israel immediately stop their aggressive actions in Rafah?
I haven't seen anything reported that they have stopped their aggressive actions in Rafah. I think the arrest warrant is the same as the arrest warrant they have against Putin and George Bush and, a dozen other leaders around the world. I think they are a court with no teeth.
Yeah.
Unless they go to Canada. Oh, wait. You guys won't arrest them either because Trudeau's coming up on the list.
He is. He may have to arrest himself, though, because they have signed on to the ICC, and they've agreed to abide by anything the court says. So when that happens,
do you really believe that they'll abide by it?
Nope.
I think that's about the time they'll pull out of that agreement.
Yeah, a lot of virtue signaling that went on, and now it's all coming home to roost, right? So,
yeah. So the one thing I did see is the biggest power that they may have over Israel is, going to the UN and, the U.S. vetoing any actions by the Security Council, them taking it to the General Assembly, and the General Assembly voting to throw Israel out of the UN. Now, again, it's probably a toothless action. Gee, we're not a member of the UN anymore. We've got the Israelis, out there making statements that, nobody but the Jews can determine what is moral for them. Nobody else can. So they aren't going to listen to this court. It means nothing to them.
Well, I think we've covered most of the ground tonight. Anything you think we're missing? Any aspects to any of these stories?
I don't think so. I think we could go on for hours on this stuff, but I think the world is, Russia and Ukraine is escalating. The West and Russia are escalating against each other, but I don't think they're the only problem in the world that we need to be thinking about. Israel's got nukes too. Throw them out of the UN, tell them they're not a country anymore, and I have a feeling they'll be, the first guys to use them. So, I think we're just in a world of crap, Rick. That's my opinion.
We are. It just keeps getting worse, and I'm very worried, to be quite honest. Very worried, and I think we should be. Anyway, that's it for tonight, I guess. Kevin, thank you so much for your perspective on all of this. I'm going to start getting ready for Donald Trump and the rubber chickens.
I will actually stay up and wait for the rubber chickens.
I don't know what to expect, but boy, talk about potential sabotage.
Yep.
Oh boy, he's walking into it tonight. I can smell the rubber.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'll wait to see what his response is next time around, because he'll do something as well.
Yeah. Politics. It's a blood sport. I'll be right back, folks. Thank you, Kevin. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, and just to give you an indication of what that whole rubber chicken thing is all about, I do have something to show you. It'll help tee up Trump's address to the Libertarian convention in Washington. RFK Jr. spoke there yesterday, and it's Trump's turn tonight. This will explain it.
But RFK has been passing these out. These are rubber chickens he was giving out to people here at the convention, David, telling them, debate Bobby. And so they say tonight people are going to be squeezing these, I guess, when Trump's on that stage, because they want to see him to take him on the debate stage. But RFK.
Okay. Is that dirty politics? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh boy, I wouldn't want to be Trump tonight. Somebody was thinking ahead on the Kennedy team. Also, 1 year ago, James Topp, Canadian veteran, marched all the way across Canada, and this was the day when he arrived at his destination in Ottawa to lay his hand on the tomb of the unknown soldier. He did all that, rather, to draw attention to the government's overreach during the pandemic. He wanted a forum with Canada's leaders to talk about the pandemic, the mandates, all of those things, and this is what it looked like. This was video from Daisy Media. Of course, our own Brendan Kennedy was there too. We were live streaming that at the same time. Huge crowd there with him, behind him.
Excuse me. Hello.
All right, brother. All right, brother. Yeah. Unreal.
You got a camera sitting over there.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. And even after all that, Trudeau still would not come out and talk to him.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm looking here, and I'm trying to find the link for the Trump feed. Not seeing it yet. Or maybe not quite there, but it's coming up, as I understand it. Very, very soon, within minutes. Supposed to, anyway. So I've got my eye on that. Also today, and it's fitting, I suppose, that it's the 1-year anniversary of James Topp arriving in Ottawa. Newfoundland's unknown soldier is returning home, has returned home 100 years after the First World War. The remains of the soldier were placed in possession of Canada Saturday during a transfer ceremony at Beaumont-Hamel in northern France. The soldier's remains will be reinterred inside a newly constructed granite burial chamber at the base of the Newfoundland National War Memorial in St. John's. We have some images here online from the event today as the remains began their journey home. Over a century. Wow. Yeah, here's some images online you can see there. Newfoundland's unknown soldier begins journey home from France after more than 100 years. Beaumont-Hamel Memorial Park in France. It says here in this post from Ralph Goodale, Liberal MP, Beaumont-Hamel Memorial Park in France is a fine tribute to all the Newfoundlanders who fought and died here in World War I. Tomorrow, this will be today, Veterans Affairs Canada, with the help of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, is repatriating to St. John's, Newfoundland, the precious remains of an unknown soldier. More images here. And again, this is the journey as it began today, flying home. And I don't know if it's rhyming or repeating, but however you're viewing history and the replay, we're definitely getting that in real time now, aren't we? Whether it's what came before World War I or World War II or a combination of both, it's a mishmash. It's a little bit different this time, but I sure am seeing a lot of similarities. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Okay, it's still about a half an hour away before Trump takes to the stage, but here's a little bit of a prelude from Right
The
Side
700,000 plus Libertarian voters across America who are
Voting
registered to
elites.
vote for this upcoming election. The Libertarians here want a voice in Washington. While they have over 120 elected offices across the country, they want a voice in Washington, maybe someone on President Trump's cabinet and his administration. They just want somebody that they can go to who fights for their beliefs. Now, the Libertarian Party and the conservative movement, the Republican Party, have a lot of similarities, but there are some differences as well, and that's why the two sides are different, is because there are some differences in their beliefs. So with that being said, it's going to be very interesting on this historic night, the first time we've seen this in 50 years of a president coming on, a former president that is, but a presidential candidate from one of the two major parties taking the stage at the Libertarian National Convention. In the front, you have a lot of Libertarians. They rearranged some of the seating for this venue. A lot of the Libertarians near the front are undecided how they will vote, so you'll see them really getting animated tonight. Toward the back, you will see voters from the Libertarian Party who have decided who they will vote for. They will vote for President Trump. You see a lot of MAGA hats and MAGA attire toward the back of the room. And so, again, you're going to see a lot of back and forth tonight. You're going to see a lot of different personalities tonight. You're going to see some RFK Jr. supporters here tonight who I'm told may be here in protest. I'm looking as well across the room as we get closer to President Trump taking the stage, and I see security all around the room, even standing on chairs. So they have a good eye on this crowd. Of course, everyone goes through the typical security measures to come inside through the mags and Secret Service screening. But inside, we have security standing on chairs so they can get an overview of the crowd from above. So they're on the ground and also standing on chairs, just to give you an idea of what security looks like, because this is going to be a very vocal night. Buckle up, because it's going to be a ride this evening, something we haven't seen, if ever, because when we usually go to a Trump rally or a Trump speech or a dinner where President Trump is speaking, you see a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives who want a change for the positive, someone who supports our Constitution, and someone who wants to raise your family in an America that your grandparents were raised in, someone who believes in our Declaration of Independence, our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, 14th Amendment. It goes on, just what our forefathers wanted for this country. Well, a lot of these libertarians want the same thing, but there are some differences, again, in beliefs.
Okay, this is dangerous for Trump.
If you're watching,
it's dangerous
on YouTube, thanks for subscribing to the RSBN
okay,
YouTube
so
channel.
this is, yeah, it's dangerous because he's running the risk here of being drowned out by a bunch of squeaky rubber chickens. I can't say that I'm really all that in favor of it, because it's a race to the bottom with behavior like that. Do that to him here, and somebody's going to do the same thing back on the other side, or they'll try to. This is an unusual setup here, though, because, as you just heard, he will be taking to the stage to speak to a crowd that is at least partially hostile. So he's not used to that. And I think Trump has a bit of a temper. So if he's being drowned out by a bunch of squeaky rubber chickens, or a bunch of people heckling him, like a bunch of people, and if it continues, I don't know how he'll react or how it will look. It could be very damaging. On the other hand, if he handles it well, he might come out of this looking really strong. This is the, again, this is the strangest presidential election I have ever seen. This is a moment of drama. I don't know what to expect out of this, but I'm engaged. I'm glued to the screen, and I'm listening. I really want to see this.
We'll also see if he goes off script tonight. A lot
Wow.
of times during his speeches, we love to hear him go off his speech, off topic, off prompter, because that's where his true personality comes out, that we love to see, that we love to hear. And so we'll see tonight if he goes off prompter and talks more from the heart instead of a script. So it's all to be determined. We'll see, but we're just moments away from President Trump.
Yeah, I think we're still 15, maybe 20 minutes away from him actually speaking. So let me just pull down out of that. I don't know. He's taking one heck of a risk. Optics are everything when it comes to politics. Image, brand image. Kennedy didn't face this kind of challenge yesterday at all. He took to the stage, provided I think a cautiously crafted speech. I think he stayed out of the weeds. He didn't really touch on issues that were terribly damaging to him. The subjects that were most volatile, he just stayed away from. And, I think the most risk that he took was participating in some interviews off stage at the convention with live streamers, podcasters, where he was asked some pointed questions, depending on which interviewers were asking the questions. But yeah, nowhere near the risk that Trump is taking here. This is being broadcast live, and I'll tell you, if they drown him out, if he has, I don't know. I just don't know. You see the risk here, right? I'm sure you do. It's going to be entertaining, very entertaining, and it's a knockdown, drag him out fight. Strangely, I would say RFK Jr. has the most to gain here tonight, potentially, from Trump's speech. Maybe Biden, but I think RFK Jr., if Trump doesn't do well here, then it could bleed off a lot of support, and it would be transferred over to RFK Jr., I think, because anybody that's inclined to vote for RFK Jr., these libertarians, I don't know. The thing about these libertarians is they're a completely unpredictable, dysfunctional bunch. They call themselves libertarians. Probably 5% are true libertarians. The rest of them, you don't know what the heck they are. But the only thing they agree on is that, they don't like to take orders from anybody. They don't like authority. They don't like to be told what to do. Aside from that, they run the gamut from what I've seen. Anarchists, communists, socialists, probably some fascists in there, conservatives, all kinds of people who are kind of mixed up, mishmash of political ideas and ideologies, and I think a lot of them find themselves homeless in other political parties, maybe because they adopt some of what, say, the Democrats believe in, but they really don't like authority, so they end up over with the Libertarians, and it's pretty hard to find a pure Libertarian in my experience. They're just all wacky. Yeah, I think these conventions too, these Libertarian conventions, they're a lot more colorful than most other political conventions, just because they are so unpredictable and all over the map ideologically. So yeah, we're still about 15 minutes away. Let me run this promo. I'll be right back after this.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, still keeping an eye on the stage in Washington, where Trump is due to speak any time now. Getting real close to him coming up to the podium to speak at the Libertarian Convention. Protests is still in full swing in Israel, where some people would like to see the resignation of Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's what it's looking like over there. You know, the position, too, of these different candidates on foreign policy, there is some real differences between them. You know, particularly in Israel, where, you know, Trump has said that Israel needs to go in and just finish the job and do it quickly. A more nuanced approach from RFK Jr., but still supporting Israel. And Biden Seems to, well, he says that he's supporting Israel with an ironclad guarantee of support, and yet at the same time, out of the other side of his mouth, he's calling for a ceasefire. So his support for Israel, I would say, is waning, if it was ever really ironclad to begin with. And he seems to be saying things that might appeal to a voter base in Dearborn, Michigan, Detroit. Big Muslim population, and he needs to win there. So, playing politics with the situation in the Middle East. That's what's going on with Biden. Okay, let's go back here and pick up some of, just check in on the podium here. Here we go. Apparently there are quite a number of MAGA supporters at the Libertarian Convention.
Here tonight and protests here tonight. But the truth is, when you get here, there's just as many Trump supporters who have already decided in the Libertarian Party that they're voting for Donald Trump. They're here tonight. They're wearing their gear. They're wearing their MAGA hats. That's the truth. You've seen it tonight. We panned the crowd. You see it. And you hear them chanting, "We want Trump."
Maybe we'll get fisticuffs in the audience.
Any minute now before President Trump takes the stage here at the Libertarian National Convention.
Yeah, you have quite a mix of people there tonight. And they're not going to see eye to eye on a lot of things. This is going to be interesting. What are you guys thinking in the chat? I'll go over here to Rumble. Take a look in there. Hello, folks, over on Rumble. What are you guys thinking in the chat there on Rumble? You think Trump can handle this? This, I think, is probably the biggest test in terms of public speaking he will have ever had. Yeah. Diane's in there. Hello, 15 Diane, just arriving. And the Kron. I'm still on the fight. Linda, oh wait, rubber chickens won't sway him, says Linda. Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he'll come in with a plan. He'll have some sort of response to the hecklers. David says Trump will do well. And hello back, Diane, 15 Diane. I don't know. And how about over here on YouTube? What are you guys thinking? How's Trump going to do tonight? Sandy says, Trump's chickens won't work without dip. And Isabel says, Trump has charisma. And Lori says, Trump chickened out of Kennedy's challenge to debate at the convention, hence the rubber chickens. Isabel says he's got this. Yeah, I can understand why he wouldn't want to debate Kennedy, because Kennedy has the most to gain, Trump the most to lose. If he stands on that stage and debates him, it gives Kennedy additional legitimacy. So, yeah, he doesn't want to go there. Doesn't want to treat him as a serious candidate. Although it's becoming increasingly clear that he is serious, that he does have support. KSR says Trump 2024. Julie Bean says MAGA, Maple MAGA. And Julie Bean just spells out Trump. And what other comments do we have about this? Audio is loud on commercials. Thank you. Yeah, this whole streaming system messes with audio issues, just ongoing audio issues. I need to refine this, and I've been messing around with a bunch of different streaming systems, trying to come up with better solutions to improve quality. So I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. And Roger says, Kennedy is definitely in the pocket of the Israel lobby. He no longer talks about peace. He continues the war drums for Israel. Maggie Creations says, small group. I don't know what that means exactly. Merrick says, good, Israel needs the help of Trump. Yeah, Israel needs help. Especially right now. I think that Netanyahu has made some pretty serious errors, and it's costing them in the court of public opinion in a big, big way. Difficult position for him to be in. Took the bait, took the trap, walked into the trap, not just, it's not even just a Hamas trap, it's a human trap, in my view. A human trap driven by emotion and maybe not thinking things through. So, and this is a very important time tonight for Trump, for RFK Jr., for Biden too, actually. I mean, this is a pivotal moment in the election because, as I indicated last night, in some key states, the race is so tight, we're looking at a difference right now in the race of about 1 or 2 percentage points. Getting the support of the Libertarians could make the difference in those states. So in this way, in this election, the Libertarians have the potential to be kingmakers, or collectively a kingmaker, or a spoiler, just like RFK himself. I think he's still kind of a long shot at this point because you have the heavy-duty political machinery and the money behind the Republicans and the Democrats. He doesn't have that, but he's in there. Anything can happen. He's still in contention. But man, I'll tell you, this is this is why Trump's taking this chance tonight. He's going to walk up there, and he knows that this could actually make the difference one way or the other. This could determine who ends up in the White House. It really is that critical. Let's go back to the audio here. Now they're still running a promo video, so we're about just minutes away if he's on schedule. Maybe about 3 minutes, T-minus 3 minutes and counting, to Donald J. Trump at the Libertarian Convention in Washington, D.C. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
the sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
There's that stage waiting for Donald Trump. And here I am sitting. We haven't done a True Conspiracies episode in a while. I was going to do one a few nights ago because I picked up this National Enquirer. I picked this up around May 17th. And I went into the future and bought it. I proved it that night because I showed it on the 17th, and it's dated May 20th. See there? So it's history now, but it was the future when I bought it. So I had next week's news that day. Alex Jones might have what's his slogan? Tomorrow's news today? Anyway, we have next week's news now. Only now it's in the past. But I just show you this because I wanted to talk about that back on the 17th. Joe Biden, White House in revolt. They don't think he can win. And this is, aimed directly at a big portion of the MAGA demographic. Definitely the Enquirer. This is a MAGA newspaper. Not all MAGA people, but a portion of it. You go look at these tabloids, you can see that these days they're aimed at a much older base of readers, because they're always talking about old celebrities from the 70s and the 80s. It's aimed at me. Fighting for lives as President Biden, 81, looks like a loser. Says so right there. So he's screwed. As he didn't get invited to speak at the Libertarian convention. Desperate White House staffers are drowning in a cesspool of bitter backbiting and attempted coups as President Joe Biden's slipping poll numbers spark fears they'll all be unemployed if the 81-year-old fails to win a second term, sources spill. The atmosphere has become toxic, an insider says. They're always unnamed sources. People are acting like rats on a sinking ship, scurrying for cover and a way to save themselves. It's a wonder anything gets decided or done. Sources dish the damning dysfunction became obvious in a recent failed coup against Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. The gossip's dish was masterminded by de facto communications chief Anita Dunn! Dunn, 66 years old, denies attempting to oust her rumored rival. However, sources snitch that the miffed mouthpiece tapped top Democrats to plead with Jean-Pierre, 49, to resign because the press secretary's uninspired answers to probing media questions and her habit of reading replies straight from briefing binders has reflected negatively on the administration. I don't know. I never really thought about that much, but if they say so. A mole explains, it's always an unnamed source. This one's a mole. Simply firing Karine was not an option because the optics would have been so poor. You're talking about the first black and openly gay person. I didn't know she was gay. I didn't know. Well, inquiring minds want to know. I wasn't asking the question, but now I know, and I really didn't care. To hold the position, they needed to convince her to peacefully depart of her own volition. Whatever. Sources also have suggested Jean-Pierre's near firing was a dry run for potentially eliminating Vice President Kamala Harris from the Democratic Party's presidential ticket before August's convention in Chicago. Do you think it's really that bad inside the Democratic Party? We keep hearing things like this, that Biden isn't going to survive, that the knives are out, that they want to replace him. Is Joe Biden's White House truly in revolt? Not sure. I get the impression that they want status quo, that the party is fully behind Biden at this point, and that they're determined to keep propping him up. It's like not Weekend at Bernie's, it's Bernie's comes to the White House. If you get my drift. It says here, Kamala is, an insider says, the Kamala is far more a drag on the ticket than Jean-Pierre ever will be. Now, are they going to speak, or are they going to, what's going on here now? We've got people at the podium. Let's hear what's being said at the convention. Here we go.
Incredible opportunity tonight, and I'm really grateful for it. Never in the history of the Libertarian Party has a former president and front-runner candidate for the presidency come to speak specifically to our concerns. Thank you all for making history with us. I want to continue this trend, so let's work towards that. I really appreciate you all. And without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Here he comes. Ooh, mixed reaction. Mixed reaction. Pull this audio down so we don't get a copyright strike. Just drop it down a little bit. That music always gets us a copyright strike. So, and you can hear the crowd, like some of them are enthusiastic, others are booing and jeering. There he is. He's walking out. He's taking a big risk here. So far, so good. We'll see how he manages a semi-hostile crowd. Wow. And the signs are up in front of the cameras. You cannot see his face. Can't see him. Barely. We'll see if they take those signs down. Not the strongest opening. Pull this audio down a little bit more. We don't want to get hit with that copyright strike. We'll just let that music play out. And you can hear the crowd. Yeah, they're just blocking the cameras. You can't see them. Can't see them. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But it's, so far, not very good. Uh-huh. Are they going to put those down so you can see the podium? Here we go. We've got them. They've got a semi-clear shot there, so that's good. All right, let's go over. We can bring this audio up now, I think. Come on.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Angela, for that introduction. And I am truly honored to be invited here tonight as the first president in American history to address the Libertarian National Convention. Great honor. A lot of people ask why I came to speak at this Libertarian Convention, and you know, it's an interesting question, isn't it? But we're gonna have a lot of fun. Well, in the last year, I've been indicted by the government on 91 different things. So if I wasn't a libertarian before, I sure as hell am a libertarian now. And unlike Joe Biden, I don't throw people in jail for disagreeing with me. I don't do that. I want to thank some people that have been really outstanding, and they are great libertarians and great people. Ambassador Rick Grinnell, Senator Mike Lee, Kash Patel, and Senate candidate who's going to win from Virginia, Hung Cao. I also want to pay our deepest respects to the two young missionaries from Missouri, Davy and Natalie Lloyd, that were viciously killed yesterday in Haiti. It was a horrible thing, and I just want to pay our respects to their families. They're great families, incredible people, and it's a very, very sad moment. What happened was so horrible. So, to Davy and Natalie, please, thank you very much. I'd also like to express my gratitude to all the fierce champions of freedom in this room. You are champions of freedom. You are indeed. And I'm here to talk to you about the rise of left-wing fascism in the country and to need to defeat the corrupt and incompetent tyrant in the White House, crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States. He is the worst president by far in the history of the United States. In fact, I would say that Jimmy Carter is very happy tonight because he goes down as being a brilliant president by comparison. Everyone here tonight believes that we must fight for the same fundamental freedoms: freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of the right to own a firearm, and freedom over taxation. Oh, that was interesting. Then you're going to like me, firearm, you're going to like me. Nobody better than me. And we just got the full NRA, the strongest endorsement they've ever given the NRA, so that's good.
What the hell is going on?
Freedom from overregulation, freedom from government discrimination, and we believe that we do not have a free country if we do not have free speech. And very strongly believe that. We stand opposed to government tyranny in all of its many forms. We are opposed to a government that spies on political campaigns. I wonder who that might be. Like they did on me, spies on the American people, censors us, and crushes the rights of its own citizens, which the Biden administration does. We want government out of our business, out of our wallets, and out of our lives. That's what we want. We believe that Marxism is an evil doctrine straight from the ashes of hell. Having Marxism in our government is intolerable, and teaching it to our children is considered to us child abuse. We believe that the job of the United States military is not to wage endless regime change wars around the globe, senseless wars. The job of the United States military is to defend America from attack and invasion here at home. We believe that property rights are fundamental to a free society and that Joe Biden's rampant inflation is a monstrous theft from the American people. It's a theft. We believe that the greatest threat to our country is not from enemies abroad. It's the tyrants, communists, fascists, and thugs attacking our rights and liberties from within. And above all else, we live by the words of the great American patriot, Patrick Henry, "Give me liberty or give me death." Our rights and freedoms have never been more in danger than they are right now. That is why I have come to extend a hand of friendship to ask for your partnership to defeat communism, defeat Marxism, and defeat crooked Joe Biden, who is destroying our country. He's destroying our country. We can be libertarian or anything else. This man is destroying our country. Thank you. And by the way, why isn't Joe Biden here speaking to you tonight? You know why? Why isn't he? Because he can't put two sentences together. That's why he's not here.
I'm going to flip over to another feed here. I think it'll be a little more stable here. Hang on. Picking it up on the other side here. Here we go.
Crooked Joe Biden 4 more years. Today's radical left Democrat Party is not a Democrat Party of years ago, which still wanted big government, but at least believed in tolerance and free speech. Joe Biden's radical left Democrat Party is a fascist movement that wants to throw you in jail if you post a meme they don't like. They want to throw you in jail if you do something that isn't quite to their liking. What you're witnessing under Biden is a toxic fusion of the Marxist left, the deep state, the military-industrial complex, the government security and surveillance services, and their partners all merging together into a hideous perversion of the American system. And that's exactly what it is. The fact is that Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. My mission is to liberate our nation from these fascist frauds and to rescue our democracy, to restore our republic, and to evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House so that America can be a free nation once again. He's the worst in history. The Biden regime censors its critics, spies on its opposition, takes away the bank accounts of U.S. citizens as an extra form of punishment, persecutes Christians and patriotic parents, and is currently trying to put the leading candidate for president in jail. That happens to be me. While imposing a strict gag order in order to keep me from talking about their crimes and their unconstitutional acts. They want to get rid of the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, due process, the right to a fair trial, and the right to counsel, all the while pushing wealth confiscation and waging endless and unnecessary wars all over the globe. Anyone can talk about defending freedom, but I've actually put everything on the line to resist these despots and these stuff. And I stand before you tonight as your best hope of defeating the weaponized Biden and the very evil regime that his people, because it's probably not him because he doesn't know where the hell he is, but that his people are pursuing. You can make the difference. The Libertarian Party can make a big difference. The Libertarian Party can make a big difference. Together we can make America freer than ever before for citizens of all backgrounds and all walks of life. We can unleash new hope, optimism, and energy. We can release limited government so that the people can have an unlimited future. United, we will be unstoppable. If we unite, we are unstoppable. I will be a true friend to libertarians in the White House. And I am proud to be the only president in 70 years who started no new wars. I took on the military-industrial complex. I broke the stranglehold on neocons and warmongers on the Republican Party. And instead of war, I made peace in the Middle East, something nobody thought was possible, and dealt with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, where a nuclear war was guaranteed to start in a very short period of time if Hillary Clinton became president. You know, that would have been a nuclear war 100%. And you would have never had the October 7th attack in Israel, would have never happened. And the attack in Ukraine by Russia would never, ever have happened. Wouldn't have happened. Hundreds of thousands and even millions of people would be living today. I unbound the United States from globalist agreements that surrendered our sovereignty. I withdrew from the Paris Accord. I withdrew from the anti-gun UN arms treaty. And I withdrew from the corrupt and very expensive World Health Organization. Not a good thing. I passed the most significant, and this is so important, but I passed the most significant criminal justice reform in history. And perhaps my proudest accomplishment is to have exposed the depth of corruption in the Washington swamp. Thanks to me, the entire world knows that the deep state is real, and the lamestream media is fake. It's fake. A great libertarian who may very well be in the room right now, I believe, but he's a great libertarian, D. Roy Murdoch, who I've become friends with through his writings in the American Spectator and numerous other places, wrote an article yesterday in which he mentions just some of the things that make me a libertarian without even trying to be one. That's nice. D. Roy wrote, Donald J. Trump will address the Libertarian Party and its national convention on Saturday. The Libertarian Party should nominate Trump for President of the United States. Whoa. That's nice. That's nice. Only if you want to win. Only if you want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Thank you, D. Roy. Thank you. No, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that. Keep getting your 3% every 4 years. The reasons for doing so, policy and politics, are as solid as the Hope Diamond. D. Roy says this event is very unprecedented, he said. As the Cato Institute president, Peter Gotler, observed in Thursday's Washington Post, it will be the first time in U.S., think of this, first time in U.S. history that a presidential candidate of a rival party will address the convention of a party that is presumably gathering to nominate its own candidate. Now I think you should nominate me, or at least vote for me, and we should win together. You heard those words. Nominate me or vote. Vote for me. Because the Libertarians want to vote for me, and most of them will. And it's very important. Because we have to get rid of the worst president in history. And together we will. And without it, there's a risk that we could have 4 more years, we won't have a country left. So what is the purpose of the Libertarian Party getting 3%? What is the reason to take a chance of having this horrible president destroy our country, which he will do in far less than 4 years? It's not going to take 4 years. That is why I'm committing to you tonight that I will put a libertarian in my cabinet and also libertarians in senior posts. Pretty good. That's pretty big. Or you can keep going the way you have for the last long decades and get your 3%, then meet again, get another 3%. No, you want to make yourself winners. It's time to be winners. You have a lot of common sense. It's time to be winners. So I'm asking for the well, think of it. I'm asking for the Libertarian Party's endorsement, or at least lots of your votes, lots and lots of Libertarian votes, based on my 4-year, very outstanding presidential record. Much of my record is Libertarian. As an example, D-Roy, thank you. Hey, where is D-Roy? Is he here? D-Roy, where are you? He's great. I like D-Roy. I've liked him for a long time, and he is a libertarian. Thank you, D-Roy. Thank you. D-Roy wrote, the $1.5 trillion Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was America's largest infusion of tax release. That's the largest tax relief ever. It sliced individual tax rates for all taxpayers and slashed corporate tax rates from a punishing 35% to a globally competitive, and much more than that, only 21%, way down. It was the largest tax cut in the history of our country. Now you can like it or you don't have to like it. Immediate expensing of business equipment and other reductions fueled the best economy that our country has ever had. For 4 years, we had the best economy our country has ever had. Black and Hispanic unemployment reached the best levels in history. Female joblessness slid to levels unseen before. Black poverty collapsed to record lows. And all of the things, income inequality shrank, and it shrank at levels we've never witnessed. Between 2016 and 2019, real median household income grew. These were the Trump years. 16.4%, the highest ever, to almost $10,000 per family. Think of that. Number 2, Trump cut red tape as never before. He promised to kill 2 old regulations for every new one. And in fact, he ended up actually scrapping 8 for 1. And he was going to 12 to 1 and doing numbers that were unbelievable. Thank you, D-Roy. D-Roy is, and I'm actually just quoting from the article that came out today from D-Roy Murdoch. He said, number 3, Trump fully restrained inflation. We had practically none. Prices were rising just 1.4% as he left office. And this was a fraction of the 9% inflation that lying Joe Biden repeatedly claims Trump handed him. No, he said we handed him no. It went up to 9% after he took over the White House and created all the inflationary acts. He did a horrible job. The 30-year mortgage rate, as Trump departed, was 2.77% versus the almost 9% today. And you, by the way, even if you pay 9%, you can't get any money. There's no money available. Trump's drill, baby, drill approach fostered energy independence, which we've never had before. Low fuel and electricity prices helped moderate inflation and propel economic growth. But all of these things have now skyrocketed. They have skyrocketed to levels never seen. Inflation has hit us harder than it's probably ever hit us before, and people are suffering because of it. Trump promoted parental rights and school choice. Trump's education department repealed the so-called guidance letter that turned on-campus sexual harassment accusations into de facto criminal convictions. You know all about that. Who else would do that for you? Trump restored due process to the he said, she said minefield for your children. I know many, many people, what they've gone through with that is they've gone through hell. In a powerful blow, Trump required universities to respect the First Amendment lest they lose their federal funds. I said, you don't respect the First Amendment, we're taking away all of your federal funding. Trump torpedoed Obamacare's individual mandate and got rid of many of its taxes. Medical price transparency empowered consumers to shop for health care services and compare costs. And this is one of the biggest things that's happened, and it's reducing the price of drugs and everything related to drugs and medical care at levels not seen before. This will soon be happening. The competition is now slowing what were ballooning health care expenses. Trump signed right to try. Terminally ill patients now can receive experimental and possibly life-saving treatments. And when at death's door, what do these suffering Americans have to lose? What do they have to lose, you ask? They are so thousands and thousands of people are now living because of right to try. Trump nominated some 300 constitutionalist federal judges, a record, including a seldom-seen 3 Supreme Court justices in one presidential term. Very rarely seen before, if ever. Trump canceled and defunded federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and other state-funded racism schemes. The VA Mission Act, which Trump signed, lets military veterans receive federally funded medical care in the private sector if delays prevent their treatment in VA hospitals. In other words, if they're delayed, they can go out and get a private doctor. We pay the bill. They go out, they get a private doctor, they get better. People were waiting online for 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, and not anymore. Trump signed a measure that streamlined dismissals of federal bureaucrats who abuse America's beloved veterans. He got NATO countries to pay hundreds of billions of dollars more for their protection. The only president who did so, and substantially reducing what we were forced to pay. We got them to pay, other nations to pay hundreds of billions of dollars that they weren't paying. No other president was able to do that, reducing very substantially what we paid. During the Trump administration, we had peace through strength, no wars other than the complete and total destruction of ISIS. And DeRoy ended by saying that most libertarians would say this is a non-exhaustive roster of accomplishments like no other, that it truly shines. So again, DeRoy, thank you very much. DeRoy Murdoch, I appreciate it. We could not have written that better. And as you say, there were many other things we did that were quite libertarian also. So I want to thank you very much. That was a great article. Thank you. DeRoy Murdoch, thank you. When I return to the White House, we will break the deep state grip on our democracy once and for all. I did far more than any other president in that regard. As an example, I inherited James Comey, a terrible, terrible person from the Obama administration. And very early on, I fired him and lots of others at the FBI, in addition to thousands and thousands of corrupt and unnecessary people throughout our government. And now we are going to finish the job. We will root out the sickness that has taken over our Justice Department, our FBI, and other agencies. Our goal will be nothing less than the rebirth of fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. Since the day he took office, Joe Biden has worked to persecute political dissidents, including conservatives, Catholics, and other Christians and opponents of his weaponized state. Right now, the Biden DOJ is trying to put Christians in prison for 11 years for the crime of singing hymns. The moment I win the election, I will appoint a special task force to rapidly review the cases of every political prisoner who has been unjustly persecuted by the Biden administration so that I can sign their pardons or commutations on day one. And I will ensure that libertarians are helping to lead that task force. You'll be on that task force, many of you. As everyone knows, it will be my great honor to pardon the peaceful January 6th protesters, or, as I often call them, the hostages. They're hostages. There has never been a group of people treated so harshly or unfairly in our country's history. This abuse will be rectified, and it will be rectified very quickly. And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served. He's already served 11 years. We're going to get him home. We're going to get him home. I'm proud that I have put forward a detailed plan to smash the censorship and industrial complex and restore free speech. On day one, I will sign an executive order banning federal agencies from colluding to censor the lawful speech of American citizens. And we will remove the rogue bureaucrats who conspire to take away your First Amendment freedoms. We will do that quickly. I will once again slash a record number of liberty-destroying regulations. I will stop Joe Biden's plan for the largest tax. He is going to give you the largest tax increase in the history of our country. And I will end that. And I will make the Trump tax cuts the biggest in the history of our country. We will make them permanent tax cuts. We will also stop the massive Biden inflation tax, a stealth tax by which crooked Joe Biden is printing trillions and trillions of dollars and plundering it for the cronies and political friends that he's got all over Washington. And we will cancel the Green New Deal, which is the Green New Scam. It's a big scam. We will terminate Crooked Joe's insane electric vehicle mandate. And we're going to bring your energy costs down by 60 and 70% because we will drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We will eliminate illegal government discrimination, return to a society based on individual rights and individual merit. And I will also stop Joe Biden's crusade to crush crypto. We're going to stop it. I will ensure that the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. I will also immediately end the humanitarian disaster on our southern border. We will end it quickly. You cannot have capitalism and also have open borders because you will soon be turned into a socialist nation, then a poor nation, And finally, you will be a failed nation. By ending the border crisis, which we will do immediately, we will save freedom, prosperity, and capitalism in America. And before I even arrive at the Oval Office shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, so we quit spending hundreds of billions of dollars to fight other people's wars, and so that we start immediately saving thousands and thousands of lives. And I am committed to restoring peace and restoring stability and to stopping Joe Biden's march to World War III. You know you're being led right into World War III. You know that. You're going to have World War III, and it will be a war like no other because of the weaponry, the massive weaponry. It will be a war like no other. We will stop it, and I'm the only one that's going to be able to stop it. I will protect American sovereignty from the creeping hands of global government. And as we speak, Joe Biden's minions are in Geneva, secretly negotiating to surrender more of our liberty to the World Health Organization. Drafts of the agreement show that they want to subjugate America to foreign nations, attack free speech, empower the World Health Organization to redistribute American resources. They're going to take our money and send it all over the world to other countries that we need for our own citizens in the event of a pandemic, and it can happen again. I am hereby demanding that Joe Biden submit these monstrosities to the Senate as treaties. They have to be submitted as treaties because he cannot be allowed to do that, destroy our country. He is. If he does not, I will rip them up and throw them out on day one of the Trump administration. On education, we will cut federal funding for any school pushing Marxist and communist race and gender theories on our children. We will keep men out of women's sports. And I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. We will shut down our out-of-control federal Department of Education and give it back to the states and local governments. I will return power to the states, local governments, and to the American people. I am a believer in the 10th Amendment. I will always defend religious liberty and the right to keep and bear arms. And I will secure our elections. So in conclusion, to every freedom lover here today, and there are a lot of them, and all across our land, I say, this is no ordinary election. Freedom itself is at stake. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. So if you want to strike a blow against the corrupt system in Washington, if you want to send a message to all of the people who want to take away your liberty, then right now in this election, we need your help. We need your support. When I'm in the White House, you will always find an open door to the Oval Office. Together, we are taking on some of the most menacing forces and vicious opponents our people have ever seen. But no matter how hateful or corrupt the communists and criminals we're fighting are, and they are vicious and they are corrupt, you must never forget, this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you, belongs to you. This is your home, this is your heritage, and our American liberty is your God-given right. 2024 is our final battle. With your help, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. And we will drain the swamp, and we will restore and rescue our country from these tyrants and villains once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen, the great liberation of America begins on November 5th, 2024. It will be the most important day in the history of our country, and the forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer. I want to thank you. I want your support. And again, you can either nominate us and put us in the position or give us your votes. I would say nominate or give us your votes, but we want libertarian votes because you stand for what we stand for, and don't waste a vote. And don't allow the worst president in the history of our country to come back and do the final destruction of America. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you. God bless you.
There you go. And we'll pull this audio down so we don't get a copyright strike, but I'll tell you, he was kind of sounding, to me, more like the old Trump in tonight's speech. You didn't get a lot of the personal attacks, that kind of rhetoric. He was very much focused on his platform, what he's going to do, the issues, talking about drill baby drill, oil, the wars, foreign policy, ending the war in Ukraine. I believe he could do it. I believe he could. I think any of them could if they put their mind to it, if there was the political will. Biden clearly doesn't want to. But he could forge a path to peace. He proved that he was a president of peace, a man of peace. When he was president before, no new wars. That was very true. Undeniable. On the economic front, yeah, he presided over a time when the national debt increased, but he was saddled with that pandemic. The economy was humming along. It was improving. The economy was better under Trump, and then the pandemic hit. And yeah, it wouldn't have mattered who was in the White House at the time. The economy ground down and suffered because of that and undermined the progress that had been made. I remember Rush Limbaugh sitting in his studio, speaking over the airwaves, saying, imagine what this presidency could have been had it not been for all the lawfare and the attacks coming from those people entrenched in the deep state. That was very true, too. Trump, I think, even as he got in there, because he was an outsider at the time, didn't really know what he was wading into. He had an inkling, but never would he have ever expected the level, the depth of the attacks that he was forced to endure and continues to endure. No president has suffered as much under the relentless attacks of a political opponent through attacks of lawfare and so forth as President Trump has. That much is very clear. And then, you know, as far as the pandemic went, his attacks, the attacks continued through all of that. I think he, in many respects, as Alex Jones has said, you know, I think he was blindsided by it and even tricked in some fashion. That's kind of where Alex Jones stands on it. And then, you know, I think he stated many times, even though he endorsed the vaccine and introduced Operation Warp Speed to make that available to people, and that is viewed by many as his political Achilles heel, he did always say that he was in favor of choice. And he kind of left a lot of the mandates up to the states. It wasn't stuff that was actually handled at the federal level. And that's why you saw differences from state to state to state in the way that things were handled. New York State under Cuomo, a disaster. Under DeSantis, a more creative approach, and things were not locked down. A little bit locked down at the beginning and then freed up. You know, under Kristi Noem, again there, she didn't lock everything down. And the outcomes were considerably different. A lot of people moved to Florida because of DeSantis and his freer approach. So, difficult times they were, dark times to be sure. And a lot of people I know would like to see him have a second kick at the can. denied his second term. No question about that. And election integrity is still an ongoing issue. Did you notice tonight that he didn't really touch on that? Election integrity? But he did talk about those political prisoners. And I would say this, I think that those J6ers, they need him. If anybody's going to pardon them, it would be him. And it would be his job to do it. It would be most appropriate for him to be the person to go in and provide that kind of justice, to free those people who engaged in the kind of activity that we've seen people from the radical left, the BLM groups, the Antifas, the people who set buildings on fire, caused mayhem in the streets. You don't see them, many of them sitting in prison. But after J6, yeah, a lot of people in prison, a lot. And I've seen people on both sides of the political spectrum calling for the release of those guys, those folks. Regardless of what your view is on it, I don't know if the punishment fits the crimes that may or may not have been committed in that regard. You know, and there's also no question when he was in the White House in the first part of his presidency, the economy was expanding, the stock market was on the rise. There was growth, economic growth. And yes, I know that the national debt increased in totality under Trump, but hey, every government increased their debt under during the time of the pandemic. It was a dark time. It was a challenging time. It was an unprecedented period of economic challenge. In order to keep people afloat, government money had to flow at the time. That's just basic Keynesian economics. And every government around the world engaged in that kind of economic bailout. And that wasn't just for the big companies, although they certainly benefited most, but that was just to keep everyday, ordinary, average people afloat too. We saw it in every country. Trump certainly participated in that. It undermined all of the progress, all the economic growth that had been achieved up to that point. And then after the pandemic, things did start to rebound, and Biden, I think, benefited from that, from the residual effects of Trump's economic policies. But since then, it's been a disaster. Biden and his taxation, his regulation, the unprecedented government injection of cash into the electrification of the auto industry, not just in the U.S., but in Canada as well. What a gamble we're taking now. And Trump still, very much focused on choice, and I would say that should appeal to libertarians on that front alone. He didn't really get into the EV issue and the issue of mandating the production and sale and distribution of electric vehicles, which is upsetting, has topsy-turvied the entire industry and destabilized the supply chain. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes. As I say, RFK Jr. last night not really facing much of a challenge from the crowd. It was a warmer reception, I think, than what he got here tonight. But that's because I think you had a choreographed, organized group there standing in opposition to what Trump was presenting this evening. And his speech tonight's shorter than you would normally expect from the former president, now running for re-election. And more straightforward, straight to the point, tailored in tone and in words for that libertarian audience specifically, making references to libertarian ideas, limited government, those kinds of ideas, trying to play to the crowd, but a very difficult crowd to play to indeed, because libertarians, the Libertarian Party, it's made up of people from a variety of stripes, political stripes, right? It's a mishmash of people. It's sort of, well, in a way, almost kind of like the Maverick family. They're a bunch of political misfits, in a way. And I think Kennedy's group is kind of that way too. They're attracting people from a variety of backgrounds. You have some MAGA people in there, and you have some Democrats, and you have some Republicans. It's a mishmash. It's populism. As much as the Libertarian Party is libertarian, it's also populist, and that's what MAGA has become as well. You know, MAGA has become the home of, it has become the home of the working class, the union, worker, but not necessarily the union leadership. And it is a populist party drawing people from across the political spectrum. Except for, I would say, the progressive left. They're all still sitting at home over under the Biden tent. And those are the folks who are bringing you some of these very radical policies. And I think he's quite right when he calls them the liberal fascists. That's what I've been talking about for a long time. I've been talking about that convergence too, you know, the left and the right into communo-fascism. That's liberal fascism. And that's really what you're getting there under the Biden administration. So as this campaign carries on, we are beginning to see the political ideological lines and where they stand on these issues become a little bit more clearly defined. I think that's encouraging. I think people, as we get closer to November, will now be able to see with a little bit more clarity, day after day, where these candidates really stand on foreign policy, economic policy, health care, social issues, all of these different key areas that voters need to focus on and get clear in their minds where they need to vote in order to vote in their best interests. So I think tonight's speech was kind of unprecedented. To see a front-running presidential candidate, a former president, speaking at a libertarian convention and speaking directly to those libertarians, appealing to them, asking for their support, specifically, because he needs them, because the race is so tight. This, in many respects, could determine the destiny not just of the presidency, but the entire nation, at least for the near future. The libertarians. And there's Trump saying that he'll put libertarians into key positions within his administration. That's a pretty hefty offer. And I think he's got a point on the 3%. I don't think he meant it as an insult. I think he meant it as a slight of any kind. I think he's just stating the truth. The libertarians, election after election after election, they have a tough time getting their message out and getting people to come on board with them because, as I've often said, people like to vote for brands. You're going to vote Coke or Pepsi. You're going to vote Democrat or Republican. And that's why Trump has been so successful. He didn't just run as an independent. He didn't just run as a third-party candidate. He went in and he basically took over the Republican Party. So now he has that brand, and he's turned the Republican Party into the MAGA Party. He's transformed it. That's what Kennedy wanted to do with the Democrats, but just wasn't able to cut through the defenses that the people in charge there, the power block at the DNC, couldn't get past that. They didn't want him. He wanted to run and fix the party, but fix it in his mind the way that he wants the Democrats to be, but he just couldn't cut through that. So he ends up over in the independent aisle. And that's okay. He's offering up his own brand now, appealing to a lot of people, and he's got that Kennedy name behind him, that Kennedy brand is a brand unto its own. That's powerful in itself. I would say in many respects that brand as a separate brand, it's more powerful than the Trump name in its own way. We'll see what happens now. Pretty interesting night. I think also Trump did extremely well in front of a semi-hostile crowd. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be an even tougher crowd for him. I was expecting to hear like a chorus of squeaky chickens out there, but that didn't really bleed through. There was quite a bit of heckling, but you had enough of a mix there that you had people chanting in support and cheering. You had other people, I think, who were kind of neutral, and then you had another very vocal anti-Trump crowd. So it was a contest, a competition of voices and catcalls and cheers and jeers and a whole mix of things in there. It was pretty interesting. That was probably the most difficult speech Trump has ever had to give. And I think he came through, honestly, I have to give him credit, came through with flying colors. Stood up there, took the barbs, took the slings, took the arrows, and survived. The question now is, did he win the support of the Libertarians? Will they get behind him? Will they form up behind Kennedy? I don't know. We'll find out in short order, I expect. Stay tuned. Folks, with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I love all you guys. Appreciate you guys hanging out here. It's been a very interesting broadcast. Entertaining and educational. I will be back tomorrow night. Same news time, same news channel. Maverick News Network, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind. Catch you tomorrow on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.